My name's Evan Barrett, and I live at 807 West Silver here in Butte. I'm a member of the Restore Our Creek Coalition. You know, they were well underway when I heard about them and their mission and joined their efforts. I thought, now, restoring Silverbow Creek, you know, that's something to put real effort into, something that will mean a lot to our children and grandchildren and future generations, something that can benefit the community right now in terms of improving our community aesthetics and improving our image, something that can help improve our economic opportunity, something that represents environmental justice, and something that can help make amends for a century plus of environmental devastation that accompanied the economic upside of mining and smelting. Restoring the creek seemed so important to me and had such an upside to Butte that making it happen became paramount, to me at least, someone who has spent 40 years trying to make things better for Butte. I suggest that you, as an elected leader of Butte, pull yourself back from the pressures of the immediate task in front of you and take a look at restoring Silverbow Creek through the same lens that I did. In doing that, I believe you too will see the imperative and will unshackle yourselves from the process constraints that are being imposed upon you and take the time to make sure that we get the job done. Doing this consent decree correctly, including making sure restoration of the first mile happens, is perhaps the most important thing you will ever do as a commissioner. I like most of what is in the CD and generally support its signing. However, several important things in the CD are problematic and need to be rectified, either by changing the CD itself or by action outside of the CD. But they do need to be taken care of, not with a kiss and a promise, but with some real action now that assures Butte folks that their local government is committed to getting it done and done right. I realize you need a path forward, and I will suggest such a path later in my comments. Before I signed on, Restore Our Creek had already had the pulse of Butte's people. Their threefold mission of removing the tailings, restoring the first mile of the creek, and creating in that first mile a greenway and amenities to serve the public represented the consensus thought of Butte folks. That continued to be true as hundreds and then thousands joined ROCC in creating and advancing the vision. We are pleased that the CD parties, including Butte Silverbow, have at least partially responded to ROCC's call to action in ways that assist the well-being and come to the long-term benefit of Butte and its people. The rock-hard position of EPA and ARCO to not remove the tailings, which have been in place forever, changed after more than a decade, and the Northside tailings and Diggings East will be substantially cleaned up along with some other spots. That's a victory for ROCC, but more important, it's a victory for Butte, a reason to eventually support the CD. When Butte folks, through ROCC, proposed the Silverbow Creek Headwaters Park, we were met with skepticism at best by ARCO, which had no plans for such a park and, for sure, wasn't going to pay for it. But behind closed doors, your representatives persuaded them. ARCO not only paid to develop a park plan that mirrored ROCC's plans, they agreed to pay for its construction. Another victory for the people of Butte. But what about the most critical element of Restore Our Creek's mission? The most singularly important thing to thousands of Butte folks who spoke through ROCC? Well, the restoration of the first mile of Silverbow Creek from Texas Avenue to the confluence with Blacktail Creek got a big goose egg from ARCO. ARCO started out against the creek restoration, and they remain opposed to this day. The pleadings of Butte Silverbow and state negotiators ran into a solid wall of ARCO opposition. Because of that opposition, the provisions of the CD do not smooth the way for a creek restoration. In fact, the very limited references in the CD to restoring the creek are carefully crafted impediments, most likely by ARCO's attorneys, impediments to the creek restoration, even when they're sugar-coated with rhetoric. It's not as though ARCO or any of these negotiators were taken by surprise by Butte's demand for Silverbow Creek restoration. The position of ROCC and Butte's people has never changed. Yet every step of the way, the response from ARCO was no. It was no when they first met with ROCC. It was no when the agreement in principle was negotiated and eventually came out. It was no during all the public hearings and meetings. No when negotiating the actual CD language. No when the CD came out. And it remains no. Now, we all know that our local government wants to see the creek restored. That has been repeated many times over by representatives of the government. But now you have been presented with a Hobson's choice. Take what is available in the CD as is, or nothing at all. This dilemma presents you with a serious challenge. You like most of what's in the CD and would like to secure it in place. But on the record, Butte Silverbow wants to have Silverbow Creek restored. The CD as currently formulated does not allow you to have both. Further, you've been told it is a black and white, up or down binary choice. The CD as presented or nothing, which you are told will likely result in an EPA unilateral administrative order that will surely secure much less than the CD. That Hobson's choice that is being forced upon you is unfair and unnecessary. It is offered arbitrarily, and it is offered with the suggestion of a deadline. Let's look at the deadline first. None of the other parties in the CD have put a deadline on the local government's consideration of the CD and getting Butte citizens comfortable with what is within its 1,000 plus pages. In fact, the other parties have said that Butte Silverbow should take the time that is needed. So don't be rushed. And given where we are in this process, it would appear that this construction season is going to be lost. That being the case, extra time to resolve some problems is clearly available while planning for the 2021 construction season can continue. There is no rush, and the push for quick consideration is not designed to allow time for a thorough review or for finding solutions to some challenges that have emerged, including the challenges within the CD to the ultimate restoration of Silverbow Creek. And as I mentioned, the Hobson's choice you have been given is arbitrary. There is nothing in EPA's CD process that requires parties like Butte Silverbow to swallow all or nothing choice. If you discovered that language in the CD imposed $1 million a year cost on the county, you would ask the parties to go back to the negotiations and you would seek to fix the problem. Well, if going back into negotiations is possible in such a scenario, then going back to remove impediments on creek restoration is possible too. Saying it is not a choice you have is arbitrary and designed to force you to commitment to every word of the document as it stands, even if it is not in the interests of the county. As a citizen of Butte, I feel like someone is putting a gun to our head as we deliberate. Yet I do respect your concern and suggest that we approach the impediment issue outside of the CD. We should sit down right now and craft a memorandum of understanding or letter of intent that lays out a plan to get us all to creek restoration over time. And we should get that done before you sign the CD. Before you sign the CD. Remember, the parties have given you the time to make things right. At minimum, that MOU should be negotiated and signed by Butte Silverbow, the state of Montana. It is unlikely that EPA could sign such a document. But their signature is not needed. ARCO would likely not want to participate, but we surely could ask them. However, the state, the local government, we need to use a vehicle like this to see that a restored Silverbow Creek is in our future, to ensure that the state and county are committed to such action, something that is not in the CD itself. Thank you. Let's take needed action now to make sure a restored creek is in Butte Silverbow's future.